The Adidas Adizero SL2 do a handful of improvements and refinements plus one big change now earn this daily trainer a spot in the Adizero lineup. The term SL or superlight goes way back for Adidas. In fact, it goes way back to 1972 and this shoe, the original SL72, a shoe made for the 1972 Olympic Games for athletes to wear in between events casually. However, this shoe became an iconic running shoe silhouette. In fact, even to this day, Adidas still produces this shoe, which they now call the SL72 OG in their originals lineup, and it's just as iconic now as it was all those years ago. And over the years, the SL term has come and gone through Adidas shoes, not just running shoes, repeatedly. It's appeared in running a handful of times since the 70s. It's never been a lineup. It's always been sort of a one-off or a retro release or something to do with the heritage of the brand. It was never a dedicated running shoe series until this shoe, the SL20 in 2020. The SL20 was interesting for a couple reasons. Most importantly, it was the first true running shoe that was named an SL in the running series, but also this was the first shoe to have Adidas's, at the time, Light Strike foam. Not Light Strike Pro, Light Strike foam. This is when Adidas was moving away from Boost into whatever was coming next, and they didn't quite have it all figured out yet. In fact, back in the summer of 2020, I ran quite a bit in the SL20. I actually really enjoyed the shoe. Here's a little Adidas rotation that I had back that summer. Top shoe is the SL20. The bottom right is the Boston 9, which I've talked a lot about on this channel. And the bottom left is the Adizero Pro, which I've also talked a lot about, and we don't need to bring that up in this video. But the SL20 was a very good shoe. It was a very sort of basic, durable daily trainer that kind of did a lot of things, and it was showing kind of the direction from a geometry design language, but also a feel of where Adidas was headed as they tried to figure out what came after Boost. And if we fast forward a couple years, we get to this shoe, the Adizero SL. Now this shoe was important for two main reasons. It's the first SL to get an Adizero badge on it, which is important because Adizero is Adidas's performance badge. Anything with an Adizero name stands for performance and lightweight. That's not just for running. Adizero is used across other lines within Adidas, but for running, those are their performance shoes. And this was marking the first daily trainer that the Adizero line had really had for at least 3 or 4 years. The last real trainer the Adizero line had was this shoe, the Boston 9, which again, I've talked a lot about on this channel. So the introduction of an Adizero SL trainer was a big deal for the Adizero lineup. However, I don't see the Adizero SL as a direct descendant of the SL20. And if we go back to 2020, we see the SL20. And as I said, this shoe was a big deal because it was the first SL in the actual Adidas running lineup. In 2021, they gave us the SL20.2, and in 2022, they gave us the SL20.3. But with each generation of the SL20, the shoe got more down market. The upper got heavier, stiffer, less premium materials. The midsole just got or stayed kind of stiffer as shoes evolved, to the point where I would say by 2023, Adidas just turned the SL20 series into the Duramo SL. They just truly went budget entry-level trainer with that lineup. And then additionally, that's when they released the Adizero SL. So this is why I'm saying I don't think the Adizero SL is directly related to the SL20. The SL20 became the Duramo SL, and that freed Adidas up to really now truly build a daily trainer within the Adizero lineup, which is something the line had needed for some time. And finally, that brings us to 2024 and the SL2, which is a further refinement of the Adizero SL. And if you look at these two shoes side by side, you can see that there is a relationship, but you can see that the evolution is still progressing. It's moving forward. The SL2 has a slightly different geometry and its refinements across the board. The biggest of which is in the midsole. So the Adizero SL had Light Strike primarily as the midsole foam with a small puck of Light Strike Pro in the forefoot only, which a lot of people said that they couldn't feel. Now I ran in the Adizero SL only about 80 miles, but I enjoyed it. It was stiff, but it worked and it was a good start for a true Adizero daily trainer. But in the Adizero SL2, they've now taken that puck of foam in the forefoot and they've really extended it all the way back into the heel. So now you have a full footbed of Light Strike Pro foam in a carrier of Light Strike foam. In fact, the Light Strike foam in the SL2 is now Light Strike 2.0, which is a more airy, more flexible foam. I wouldn't say it's much softer, it's more cushioned, but it just flexes better, so it feels much less rigid when you're running in it, which gives you a much more natural feel. And with all of that history out of the way, we're finally here, the Adizero SL2, which is one of the best daily trainers that Adidas has put in the Adizero lineup, maybe ever. So what do we actually have here with this shoe? Well, we have 36 mil of foam in the heel, 27 mil of foam in the forefoot, giving you a 9 mil drop. The shoe comes in at 8.4 ounces or 238 grams. My pair actually are slightly less, a couple grams less. And that's for the standard US men's size 9 reference size that everyone uses. And starting with the upper on this shoe, we have a good Adizero training upper, which is something you don't hear often. Now, this upper is somewhere between the last generation, the Adizero SL upper, which was overly padded, very heavy, not the most breathable upper, and the Boston 12 upper, which was lighter, but still maybe a little too harsh for a true training upper. This one's directly in between it, but still very much a Adizero upper, meaning it's very lightweight, has very minimal overlays, has a TPU toe bumper, TPU around the eyelet chain, and the TPU sling is still here, though it's really just cosmetic now because it doesn't actually go into the midsole of the shoe anymore. It's a soft upper. I wouldn't say it's the most conforming to the foot. It is an Adizero upper after all. But at the same time, it's got a lot of padding where you need it. And what's really interesting about the ankle collar and the heel counter in this shoe is that it is very much the Adizero design. So if you've had problems with heel lift in Adizero shoes, this one is the same design, but there's a lot more padding in here. There's a rail of padding on the top of the entire ankle collar and the Achilles flare. And this pad that's typical to Adizero heel counters is now very deep, it's very padded, and it goes all the way around. There's no gap here right over the Achilles. So heel lockdown in this shoe is pretty decent for me. And I'm going to say that even if you've had issues with heel lift in Adizero shoes, you might want to give this one a try because it is very flexible. And I'm finding that the heel in this shoe really locks to my foot. Now, I don't often have problems with heel lift, but this shoe really is conforming and sticking to my heel. I can't see where there would actually be heel lift issues in this shoe. Now, the blinker, as Adidas calls it, that's what this is still here. However, it's no longer the thing that you can flip up. It's now bonded and stitched to this, and it still acts as sort of a tab here to help you get the shoe on, but this is an unnecessary detail that I wish wasn't on here, though cosmetically it fits with the rest of the line. The other thing I'm going to say about this upper is that it isn't the widest upper. This is an Adidas shoe, but I don't consider this a narrow upper. But this material still isn't as stretchy and conforming to the foot as maybe some other companies' upper materials. So if you need a wide shoe, this may not be the best choice. But for my foot, which is neither wide nor narrow, but is high volume, I'm getting a nice training fit in here. It's a little snug, but it's comfortable for a training fit. And as the shoe's broken in, and it's definitely broken in over the 50 kilometers I put into this shoe, I'm feeling my foot sort of sink into the foam, which is giving me even more room in this upper. I'm also finding the toe box to be just fine. I'm not getting any pressure in here. And overall, I think the upper is actually quite good for your training upper in the Adizero lineup. A couple other things I want to mention about the fit of this shoe in the upper is that I went true to size with this and I have no problems. I always wear a US men's size 9 for all Adizero shoes. This one's no different. I wouldn't go up or down. So I would say the fit on this one's true to size. Secondly, the tongue in this shoe is non-gusseted, but there's enough lockdown in this eyelet chain that it's not a problem. The tongue is actually fairly padded for an Adizero shoe. If you run in an Adizero shoe, you'll know what I mean. Surprisingly padded. So it actually sits on the foot really well. And the fact that there's no gusset in this tongue doesn't really give me a problem. The last thing I'll say is that you know it's an Adizero shoe because we have the Adizero laces, which are notorious at this point for being awful. But the one thing I will say about Adidas Adizero laces is that at least they don't stretch, because putting stretchy laces on a performance running shoe is maybe the worst idea ever. And yes, I'm looking at you, Saucony. Moving to the midsole of this shoe, we still have a primarily light strike midsole. Not Light Strike Pro, Light Strike. It's badged Light Strike foam, but I'm pretty confident this is actually Light Strike 2.0 foam, which makes it the same carrier foam that was in the Boston 12 or in the heel of the Adios 8 last year. Now, a lot of other reviewers are saying that this shoe feels much softer. I don't think this Light Strike foam feels any softer than it did in the Boston 12 or Adios 8, but it definitely feels more flexible. It feels more airy. It feels less blocky when you're running in it, which I think significantly adds to the ride of this shoe, just feeling overall much more cushioned, but not softer. And I think that's a key distinction. But the real star of this midsole is what you can see here. It's a slab that goes from heel to forefoot of Light Strike Pro. Light Strike Pro is Adidas's premier racing foam. Now, it goes into the forefoot, but it stops right at the ball of the foot. I think it stops in the same place that the puck did in the last generation, meaning it doesn't go into the toes. And I'll talk about that in the ride of the shoe because there's a distinct difference there. But now you're getting the benefit of pretty much full-length Light Strike Pro, again, from heel to forefoot, that you're fundamentally running on in this shoe. And that gives this shoe a lot of propulsion, a lot of pop. You get a lot of the Light Strike Pro feel in this shoe that's encased with this Light Strike 2.0 foam that protects it and dials it down a little bit because, after all, this is a trainer. And lastly, moving to the outsole of this shoe, we have full rubber coverage of Adiwear rubber. This is not Continental rubber. Now, the thing I'm going to say about this outsole is that this tooth pattern that's on here is very grippy to the point where you can hear it tearing into the asphalt when you're running on the road, especially when you're going downhill. This rubber material really grips the surface. But I'm also going to say that it is extremely durable because I have just a bit over 50K into this shoe, and I'm seeing absolutely zero wear on the outsole of the shoe. Not that I would expect a lot after 50K, but usually on my right foot, right here, I get at least a sign of some wear. There's nothing on this shoe. So while I think a lot of people would have liked this shoe to have a full Continental rubber outsole, the fact that Adidas put the Adiwear rubber on here, I don't think really holds this shoe back because this shoe's had very good grip in wet and dry, and overall the durability is very high, and I'm really enjoying the feel of this rubber outsole. So what is the ride like in this shoe? Well, the first run I went out and did in this shoe was a 10 mile or 16K run, and I did it on tired legs. But I went out expecting this shoe to feel like a dialed down Boston 12. Because that's what I remember the last generation Adizero SL feeling like. It just felt like a stiffer Boston 12 with no plate in it. And that's what I expected this shoe to feel like. And that is very much not what I got on that first run. It was on the second run where I really connected what this shoe feels like and where it sits now within the Adizero lineup. So as I said, if the Adizero SL really was a dialed down Boston 12 last year, the Adizero SL2 is a built up Adizero Takumi Sen 10 this year. And once I made that connection between these two shoes, it was very clear to me what I was feeling in this shoe. Because if you look at these two shoes, you can see that the geometry is very similar, that heel to toe rocker that is in the lateral side of both these shoes. You look at the outsoles of these two shoes, they're nearly identical from design and where the rubber is. You just don't see the rod cutout that you do in the Takumi Sen because there's no rods in this shoe. This is a non-plated shoe. And overall, this shoe really feels like a built-up Takumi Sen 10, which is great. And there is a precedence for that in the Adizero range. Now, I'm sure everyone watching this video is very familiar with the Takumi Sen line, especially the Takumi Sen 8, 9, and 10, because they have been very popular. A lot of people have loved them here on YouTube, and they've done really well. But I'm not sure everyone knows the history of the Takumi Sen series. Prior to the Takumi Sen 8, the Takumi Sen was really more of a stripped down, more hardcore Adios shoe, specifically for the preferences of Japanese runners in the Japanese market, though it was also available in parts of the EU. And what that means is that the older classic Takumi Sens were much more stripped down shoes. They had more minimal midsoles, they had a wider forefoot, they had a softer, more conforming upper, and overall they were just more stripped down, more lightweight, and really just more hardcore overall. And while I know everyone knows the Takumi Sen, I don't think a lot of people have ever heard of the Takumi Ren, which was the training partner to the Takumi Sen. In fact, here's a picture of the Takumi Sen and Takumi Ren Boost 3, the third generation of the Boost version of these shoes, from way back in 2015. I'll put a link to Andy Kumar's blog post about these shoes. It's interesting to look through the photos and read the comments about these shoes, but this relationship between the Takumi Sen and Takumi Ren was always present with the Takumi Sen. So when Adidas came out with the Takumi Sen 8 and there wasn't a training partner to it, it was kind of strange. But here we are in 2024. If you look at the Takumi Sen 10 and the Adizero SL2 in the same configuration of the photo that I just took of my two shoes, you see this relationship. I think it's crystal clear. In fact, if you look at the geometry of these two shoes, they are the same in the forefoot, though I will say that the Adizero SL2 runs much more cushion. It feels like there's more foam in the shoe. The drop is a little different, but they feel very similar. And obviously the Takumi Sen is much more stripped down, so it's a lighter weight. But there is now a relationship between these two shoes. And once I understood this, it was very crystal clear what I was running in, and I loved it. So once I made that connection to this shoe, the Adizero SL2, I really understood what I was running in, and I really fell in love with this shoe because I'm getting that same anchored feeling. I'm not going to say it's always stable because there is a lot of foam. There is some instability in this platform, even for a forefoot striker, but I'm getting that anchored feeling and sort of that roll off the toe that's very reminiscent of what I'm feeling in this shoe. They're both flatter geometries. They don't have a lot of rocker. Visually, this one right now, when it's not on my foot, does look like it has a lot of rocker, but it doesn't run like a highly rockered shoe, where this is a very flat shoe that you can really drive into the ground. And I really could feel that in this shoe, and it felt great. The fact that it was basically running in a trainer version of a Takumi Sen is wonderful, and that really, really brought this shoe home for me. So if I'm talking about the foot strikes in this shoe, for a forefoot striker, especially someone like me who supinates mildly, this shoe is wonderful. I have absolutely no problems. Again, it's a lot of foam up here and it is fairly cushioned. You're not really sinking into it, but it can feel a little unstable, but it's still very anchored to the ground. And there's a lot of support up here. And again, that anchoring to the ground is very important here. I feel that. So forefoot strikers are going to do really well in this shoe. A midfoot striker who's supinating, landing on the lateral side of the shoe, I think is also going to do really well, as will a heel striker who is also naturally landing on the lateral side of the shoe, because this rail, this heel to toe rocker that's in here is going to guide you forward, and it's just going to be a very smooth transition. Where I think this shoe is going to break down, and if you are a midfoot striker who even mildly pronates, I think you're going to have issues with this shoe. And if you're a heel striker who even mildly pronates, you're going to have serious issues with this shoe, as you will with the Takumi Sen as well. Just because, again, this shoe is encouraging the foot to collapse inward. The other issue with this shoe isn't really an issue. It's, I think, works really well for what this shoe is intended to be, which is a daily trainer, or I would actually characterize it a bit more as a performance trainer. And that is the Lightstrike Pro that runs from heel into the forefoot stops about here. It's stopping about the top of the ball of your foot, right where the underside of your toes, but not under your toes. So a very signature feel of Adizero shoes is the toe off. Often Adizero shoes have the rods in them and they have that little piece of carbon fiber or the part of the rod that kind of wraps around the forefoot off of the rod on the big toe. It makes the toe off sensation have a little kick to it, a little snap to it. But also a lot of that is also with Adizero shoes, you're typically also toeing off on Light Strike Pro foam, which is a very high resiliency foam. It's a very spring-like action. So Adizero shoes have a characteristic of being very, not aggressive, but very agile off of the toe. Since you're toeing off on Light Strike 2.0 foam in this shoe isn't quite as snappy off the toe, which is, I think, fine for a training application, really what this shoe is meant to be, because you want a trainer to be slowed down a little, to be muted a little bit. You don't want to be training all the time in a race shoe that's super aggressive and a lot to handle, and this shoe definitely has a very fine balance there. To describe the ride of this shoe, I've used this chart before in other videos, and a lot of people have commented that it's very helpful. So if we take the three shoes I've just been talking about, the SL2, the Boston 12, and the Takumi Sen 10, and we put them on this matrix, again, easy, steady, threshold, and max effort, running. The SL2 really, its sweet spot is here. And the red area of this is really the sweet spot. The SL2 is really good for easy running to what I would call steady running, which is about 30 seconds off of marathon pace. I'm finding this shoe just ticks over those easy miles, slightly faster easy miles, very, very well. The Boston 12 I would put very much here. And again, the sweet spot is really between steady and threshold, which makes sense because the Boston 12 is really intended as a tempo running shoe. It's a tempo trainer. That's really what that shoe is intended for. But there is a lot of overlap between the Boston 12 and the SL2 now. And because the Boston 12 was sort of the de facto trainer last year in the 2023 Adizero lineup, because the Adizero SL just wasn't really quite up to par, I think for 2024, a lot of the use cases for the Boston 12 now I think are much better done in the SL2, because doing a lot of that easy daily running in a plated shoe like the Boston 12 is something I'm never going to recommend. And I think the cushion and the flexibility of the SL2 are going to benefit a lot more runners for how they were using the Boston 12 last year. Is the SL2 a complete replacement for the Boston 12? No, but I think it's going to do almost everything that you were doing in the Boston 12, and that's where the Takumi Sen 10 comes in. Because the sweet spot of the Takumi Sen 10 is really threshold to max effort running, really outright running, 5K pace and beyond. So now if you look at these three shoes on this chart, you can see that the Boston 12 sort of, you kind of don't need it because you can do a lot of the easy, steady into threshold running in the SL2 now, and you can definitely do that steady, all your threshold work and your max effort work in the Takumi Sen 10. The relationship again between the SL2 and the Takumi Sen 10 is very clear, and all of that overlap gives you the full spectrum of training to racing between two shoes, which is always, I think, what Adidas has been trying to do with their trainer, especially coming from the legacy of the Takumi Sen and the Takumi Ren. Is the SL2 the rebirth of the Takumi Ren? No, I don't think so. I don't think we're going to see that shoe come back, but stranger things have happened before. But I do think Adidas went back and they looked at the relationship of the Takumi Sen with the Takumi Ren to really mine that for use cases of really how to perfect a daily trainer or a performance trainer within the Adizero lineup. And I think they've done a beautiful job with this shoe because there's nothing in this shoe that is a massive change from the Adizero SL, the last generation. It's just a lot of iterative changes, a couple key foam changes in this midsole, but some geometry and overall design cue changes building off of one of their fast shoes that really make this shoe stand out and be very special. Overall, I'm really enjoying this shoe, but I have a bunch more things to say about it. But to do that, I need to compare this to some other shoes. As I said, pretty much the same shoes that I compared the Peg 41 to. So those will be the next handful of videos on this channel. But I will be spending a lot of time in this shoe over the summer doing a wide range of running in it because I'm finding it just very comfortable for really any kind of daily training that I need, from easy running to workouts to threshold running and kind of everything else in between. I'm really surprised by the shoe. I'm not surprised that I enjoy it. I'm surprised by how minimal it is and how performance oriented it is. That surprises me quite a bit because I did not expect Adidas to go this far Adizero with their trainer. But the fact that they have, I think it's been great. Again, I think the Adizero lineup needed this shoe, but I also think the marketplace needs this shoe. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you find this content useful, consider subscribing. You'll see more content from me pop up in your feed. If not, drop a like on this video because it helps this channel continue to grow, which I always appreciate. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.